Alrighty, I am live. Okie dokie. So first on today's agenda, I need to finish cleaning out my stash tabs. Mostly done. Yep, finish that up. While I'm doing that, I want to...
Guys, Cat here into
going to... Picture... this.
today we're going to be talking everything Ultimatum. Before we get into our league start stuff, let's just start off with streamer priority and bans to get it out of the way. Rise, what's your take on streamer priority and bans?
Yeah, I totally didn't discuss this with my stream about 1,000,000 times. I mean, it's gonna be a harsh start if you start with me. Honestly, the streamer priority was probably the worst PR move that I could have possibly imagined, and the fact that it didn't click for them, how wrong and fucked up this was long term, especially considering the fact that I don't know, it sets this uneasy air of what if they do modify people's drops, and what if there really is priority, which there isn't. But just the sheer thought of that perspective, and the fact that I was one of those people that got in legit and then I still had it on my account, and when it kicked me off I asked for it to be removed, but then they still put it on my account and I didn't know that it was there. What else? The whole thing, just a really bad call. I do partially understand their decision because of the whole, they're paying a lot of streamers, so they wanted the streamers to get in. But I don't know, especially people new to the game and getting introduced to PoE through this, just disaster left and right in my eyes.
John, who's tagging in next?
I didn't get any streamer priority queue. Just none.
I can go. No, I largely agree. I largely agree with Rise. I didn't want to just be going I agree with everything he says, because I think it makes a lot of sense for someone who is not involved within with PoE within the actual league, someone who just needs to showcase and PR it. In that sense, that you just want to push someone through to make sure they can see within a given time frame, that makes sense. But for anyone who is actually actively playing a league, there can be no advantage, because it goes strictly against everything that they say in terms of pay to win as well, right? Because it's just the extension of that. So it's influence to win, suck up to win, or whatever thing you can do to garner, a slot to win. And that cannot become the meta ever. That's very dangerous, because they strike down against this all over the place, and then all of a sudden they kind of introduce it. I think it makes a lot of sense. Let's say Shroud was going to play it for 1 or 2 days, and then he's going to bail out with his 30,000 people, and they're just kind of, meme and stuff like that, and they just wanted to push them through to see the game. And there was an allotted time slot and not a full league engagement. Makes sense. But then make it very clear that these people are just here for promotional purposes, and they are not going to be part of the actual league. And because for me, I didn't thought it was real to begin with, because I went through the queue and everything. And I was like, I can't log out, because I don't want to hit the queue again. And people are saying, oh, you can just log out. Streamer queue. It's what? What? You're joking. No, I don't believe you. There's no way.
Yep.
I go out, I go in. Huh? And I was like, okay. I mean, I see it, because I was sponsored in that in the beginning as well. And it's
that's even worse. Oh shit.
Yeah, so I can't really it's hard for me, because Like, what do they want me to do? Like, what does DGG want me to do in terms of, can I say no now? I don't know, but I messaged Bex and told her, hey, could you be so kind as to remove this? And then they did.
It's about where you draw the line, because like if we say, okay, somebody like Shroud, the example that you gave, it's fine if they have priority queue in this sort of situation. Let's posit that. Then
I'm kind of okay with like bringing a big name in like Shroud. Like I definitely get the priority queue thing as well. Uh, it's a lot. It's a lot of potential new eyes on the game. So I get what they're coming from. GGG.
that would mean that like the reason that's fine is because they paid him money to promote the game essentially, and they don't want to lose their investment. They don't want to burn all that money, like I think they said in the post. And yeah, I can see that reasoning, but like then that means going forwards at league starts, they would be massively disincentivized to pay someone like Nuki or Rise or any of the other bigger dedicated PoE streamers, because if they can't give you priority queue, that means that the money they're paying you is more at risk than the money they would be paying Shroud, if we're okay with giving Shroud priority queue but not giving you priority queue. So then that gets kind of fucky as to like where do you draw the line? Who gets invited? Yeah. Do you then invite these people that are a risk? I mean, the whole thing is just, it's toxic in so many different angles.
Yeah. And I think like, because we talked about fairness, Nugi mentioned that a lot. I think the reality is that when it comes to Path of Exile, you know, if you've played the game for a long time, the longer you've played, the more knowledge you have, the more of an advantage you're going to have on league start. But you always see those people who are like, man, I'm just going to wait for the league to come out, and that's when I'm going to play. When is the best time to play Path of Exile? And the best time to play Path of Exile is always now. And I think preserving that kind of illusion of the fact that it truly is a fair start and everybody is on even ground, even though it really isn't there, but just having that mentality is what makes people come back to Path of Exile. So that fairness is like just so important on a league start. And yeah, I felt like they really dropped the ball on that.
Go on, Ziggy. I saw you.
Oh, yeah, this is the part where we like vehemently denounce the entire thing, or people come for our asses, right?
Yeah.
I look at the whole thing from the perspective of like, they want to make sure that people are streaming the game at league start, because there's like a bunch of people from outside the PoE community coming to look at the game on Twitch right now to see the new thing, and then they just see everyone in login queues. I was like, that's a bad look. So I was like, makes business sense for them, and it also makes sense for me to be like streaming and entertaining people. So that's why I stuck with the whole thing and just kept playing and kept streaming for people. So like, I feel like anyone thinks that I'm a threat in some sort of competitive PoE environment. So I didn't really like think about it from that perspective. But yeah, the whole thing is a mistake in the end, just because, obviously, because it stirs up too much drama, but also because it does bring into question a lot of other things. And now I'm starting to wonder if there's streamer priority RNG and stuff like that. Although I feel like I don't have it.
Well, see, this is the thing. So I made a video yesterday, and I kind of went with a clickbaity title. It was Ultimatum is rewarding, you are the problem. Because I've been having like insane rewards from the league mechanic. I know, I went like peak YouTuber.
Unbelievable.
And I've had so many comments be like, well, obviously it's because you've got the streamer client enabled. And it's okay. Another really good comment I saw, I think this is the best comment I've ever seen, was, Taki, it's not fair because you play SSF, which is a smaller realm, and we all know that GGG tunes up the rewards based on the realm size. Which is like, I've never heard anything that stupid before.
I guess they haven't played in private leagues?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or do they just think an Exalt drops every third map in a private
league? The new
league?
meta is make one person private leagues, so you get infinite RNG. You can give all the mirrors to me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're thinking from the perspective of like Diablo 2, right? The whole like players 8 thing. I don't know.
But one thing I will say on the thing is like, I can very much see how it happened, and I think it's also one of those things of, it really was just like a perfect storm of events, and I feel like not enough is kind of given credit on that side of things. Like, we're used to having queue issues, but we've never had queues this bad. So they had like a massive tech issue, and they're still new to doing this whole sponsored streamer thing, so I think there should be like some slack given there. Like, this is only their second league of it, and you can tell that it was such like a rush system, because I didn't get streamer priority. The reason I didn't get streamer priority is they randomly decided, shit, okay, this is all blowing up. Let's just make a list of people and just like throw everyone's stuff in there. They didn't know my account name was Tarky and not Tarky Cat, so they just like green-listed Tarky Cat. So I
Random.
yeah. So this was my league start experience.
Oh yeah, we did. Tarky is like, I didn't get priority queue because they didn't know my name right. And aw, poor Tarky.
I was in queue for 20 minutes. I got in. I
was in queue for like 4 hours.
Went to go back to town, crashed, got put into 120k queue, and then I made like a short video on Twitter like, screw this is kind of bullshit, whatever. And then I got a message from Bex like, wait, your account name isn't Tarky Cat? And I'm like, no, it's Tarky. And it's like, oh, my bad. Give me a minute. So then like my name manually got added back into it, and then 30 minutes later, it's like, okay, if you relog now, you'll get to skip the queue. So I will just say on that front, because there was a lot of like, well, how comes X streamer has it and X streamer doesn't? Like, I know those people saying like with Lillian, whatever. And there was a lot of case of they just didn't know the account names of certain streamers, and like that just like goes to show how much of a panic rush, let's kind of bash this out thing it was. So
I think in their position, I would have done the same thing. I would have been like, oh shit, this is probably going to be a problem for the next hour or two, this queue thing, until we get it fixed out.
Yeah.
And everybody's like trying to watch the game. Everybody's getting frustrated. We've paid a bunch of like streamers to stream the game. Like, let's just quickly get everyone in so they can play, and then we'll sort it out later, and it won't even be a problem. If they had solved like the queue problems and login issues within an hour or two, probably no one would even be talking about this anymore. No one would really even
probably correct
that much.
Yeah,
there would have been a few people kind of grumbling, but yeah, I can see how I would have done the exact same thing in this situation. Even though, you know, looking back, it's definitely like a bad approach to it.
I mean, realistically, this was like the worst league lodge of all time, right? Like, there never really was anything that came close to this. There was that one
It was
league lodge
bad.
where
It
they
was
like,
very bad.
restarted the league, but that was like 3 or 4
an hour
hours
rollback.
in.
no, that was bullshit. That was Abyss, if I remember correctly. So for whatever reason, only like
I didn't
20
play that
people
one on
got in,
PC.
and I was one of those 20 people, and I had a tabular drop in ledge, and they're like, "Hey guys, we're restarting the league." I'm like, "No, I'm not breaking the economy. Like, it's fine."
Wait, what?
No,
Was
it's
that
like you
what
couldn't
happened?
go to Weavers. Nobody could enter Weavers. And
Yeah, I
like
think
there
it
was
was
like
Weaver,
some
yeah.
people got through, and then nobody else could get through. So you had like 20 people zooming forward, and then the rest was just like, please.
I remember
get
farming
in?
wetlands for 3 hours. It was great.
And then they just reset the whole thing.
I farmed like level 32 in wetlands, like a level 18 zone. It was great.
I think it was like an 8 hour, because it's like there was a big reset, and then because I remember going to bed as well. A lot of people ended up going just to bed because we were just sitting there for a couple of hours, and then they finally reset it. So it was quite a while.
Server resets are always kind of iffy though, because it's one of those things of, I'm not against the idea of a server reset, but I feel like if it goes past like the 3 hour mark, you then can't do it. Because I feel like most people will accept, like, if there was a really botched league launch, and say for the first 2 hours, only like 5% of people got to play, people will be like, okay, sure. But past the 3 hour mark, when you've kind of got like some, like the insert casual gamer who's made it to like Act 3 or whatever, if they're then dumped back to Act 1, that's gonna
Never
like
play again.
Yeah.
I don't
I mean, there was-
know.
I think it depends pretty heavily on the nature of the problem. With something that's as clear cut, I don't remember the Weaver issue. I might not have been playing a lot that league, maybe before I was streaming or something. But if something as clear cut as that, where it's just like there's this wall, there's something broken here, nobody can go past this, then like you're not going to have those mismatched progressions, and people aren't going to be. I mean, they're going to be frustrated for sure, but they're not going to be mad about losing what little progression they got because they couldn't past a certain point. Like, I feel like that's a very different situation than what happened with this league launch, where people were in and out of connectivity. Everybody had different results. Everybody's results were bad, but everybody had different results. And some people had actually progressed a decent way. You know, even people that weren't in a priority queue had gotten to like Act 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, like 10 hours or however long. So yeah, I can see that being too much to reset.
I think
there was also
Yeah, there was a point where like I had progressed, like I had gotten my first labyrinth done, like the through Act 3 after going through so many queues. And like at that point, I was just like, I don't want to restart. Like I already like my character finally has its onslaught. I'm getting some speed. I'm starting to get things moving. I don't want to go back to that like slow start again. So like at that point, like, and like I'm a veteran player too. Like as a newer player too, I wouldn't want to lose my progress. I'd want to get in. So yeah, maybe if there was a reset like really early on, but by the time they had some kind of fix ready, it was far too late, I think, to reset it.
So the issue of people like apparently generating items through duping and like the guild stash, which people were definitely linking around like stacks of exalted orbs.
Well, did you
couple
actually
hours in.
see any like evidence of that? Because I tried finding it and I couldn't find evidence of these like
I
linked
saw
dupes.
people definitely linked me like a 10 exalt stack, and then
Okay.
they were saying that they're duping like thousands, which I don't know how true that is. But if you have 10 exalted orbs like a couple hours in, I mean, I don't know. That sort of speaks for itself, but not entirely. But I also think that because I know that apparently Bex was going around asking for screenshots of that,
Hmm.
which yeah, I don't know how exactly they handle that because they take duping very very seriously.
Yeah.
But then in this case, I guess like only a couple people did it because it was so clearly an exploit, and those people probably got handled in a pretty extreme way. We just don't know about it.
Speaking
don't
of,
know.
so we'll get
I
this
feel like we would hear
exploit
about it.
ban stuff done, then we can talk about the actual lead mechanic. The 20 bans that got handed out for the exploit. What's our take on that?
Wait, why are we just more?
Oh no, we can keep no, Nikki. If you got more to say about the league,
Yes, just moving.
go on, Nikki. No.
No, I think I just in terms of like the whole people will quit if there's like 3 hours in and not come back. I think people are way blowing that point out of proportion. There's like notion that we can't even like if it's 6 hours gone, it's the entire league is dead. Like the day after, 12 hours after, or 24, we had a new peak, right? Yes, it's a dip, and then we have this. It's not a good outlook. It definitely discourages players for coming back again. But I don't know. I've seen I don't know dozens of league launches of MMOs, different games where the first 3 days are completely scuffed.
Yep.
And everyone's just sitting there, let me in, day number 2, let me in, day number 3. If there's enough hype and people want to play it, they want to play it. 12 hours is not the worst disaster in terms of like PoE launches, which you should be happy about. 12 hours is a lot in PoE retrospect, but in terms of like gaming overall, I mean, we've had it pretty good, I think, with servers and league launches.
No, I
know,
completely agree with that. Yeah.
I don't think that's like an excuse to have a battling launch, but we have had it pretty good.
say
Are you
highest
talking about
was
doing a reset though? Are you talking about doing like a reset rollback though? That you don't think it would be that bad?
I mean, we had one of those, but I mean, I mean, a single reset 6 hours in, if it's clear that like 50% plus of the player base have been completely screwed, or there's like big issues with duping or whatever it is that creates that problem. I mean, they didn't reset this time, and I think that was a good thing, because people, did start moving through the queue, and there wasn't this like clear block where it's like this massive or this small group just vastly going everywhere and people basically not getting any progress. I think that's different. My point, like what I'm trying to say here is that there's been this notion going around that nobody's going to come back to the game, and a lot of people already quit because there was like a 3 to 6 hour or maybe even up to 12-hour like server issue.
Well, that's not what we're saying.
Being a little bit dramatic.
What we were saying is, because I agree, but there's a very big difference between like the game is unplayable for like 12 hours because of queue issues and you resetting the league after 12 hours. Because I can say with 100% certainty, like I have friends who I've tried to get to play PoE every league, and like every couple of leagues they might try out for a little bit. If they made it to like Act 3 or Act 4 and they put up with all the disconnects, but then they got rolled back, they would not come back. They'd just be like, no, screw this is bullshit, and they would leave. Like, for us, it doesn't really matter because we can get back to that point in no time at all. But there's a lot of people that if they made it to like level 40 and that got reset to level 1, they would be like, this is bullshit. We are
I'd say
way
so.
more invested in this game, like way more invested in this game than the vast
kinda
majority
like,
of players.
If it's the game
you,
to play, people. I mean, obviously, the issue should be handled, and we should. I mean, GDG are trying as much as they can to make sure this never happens again, obviously, and they should just have good league launches. But I think if the game quality is high enough and there's enough, if the game offers enough good stuff out of it, people will play it regardless. They'll come back the next day. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really buy the they'll never come back or they're just done forever. If their friends are like, we're having so much fun, they'll come back and play.
It's a sketchy point, honestly, because
I mean, it's not something you should count on. Obviously, so I'm not saying that GDD should just like screw it, but you know,
I
I,
think
I don't
overall,
think anyone
like-
thinks you're an advocate for bad league starts, Nikki.
no.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear.
I'm advocating broken league starts. I think it's a good thing.
I want players to lose their progress.
Won't. I want rollbacks for no reason every 6 hours.
I think like the amount of players who didn't want their shit rolled back versus the amount of players who did was like a 5-to-1 ratio, I'd say. I think for every
Yeah, yeah.
player that, and I think that's what it boiled down to. And the big problem was too that it took like 16 hours or so to get it somewhat stable and functional, if it wasn't even more than that. I mean, that's a long time at that point. I think they just didn't know how to fix it. The way Chris described it was like, oh, we could have just done this nuclear take from the beginning, but we chose to not do it for 16 hours. I mean, yeah, it was 13 hours exactly, apparently. I mean, that's pretty extreme, you know? This nuclear take of taking the servers down for 40 minutes.
It's one of those
that
things
indicates that they just didn't know how to do it, right? That's what I think.
I mean, it's what Ziggy said earlier. It's like, if you know going into it, like, we cannot fix this, it will take 14 hours, then yeah, you take the servers down for 40 minutes. But when you're in a situation of, we don't even really know what the problem is, let's just try and troubleshoot. Okay, we think we have the fix. Did that fix it? No. Damn, did this do the fix?
I think it was 3 separate times they like put out updates saying, all right, we're implementing a fix. All right, we're implementing a different fix. Like they were throwing stuff at the wall for a little bit there. And I don't know. I don't really blame them for immediately going or not immediately going for the most heavy-handed option.
Yeah. So now that we've all said our bit, can we now talk about the bans?
Yes.
Okay.
I've one more thing that I kind of wanted to put
Go on.
forward to see if anyone else has noticed it. But sorry.
That's all right.
But I don't think it's anything so dramatic as like the league launch day and things like that cause people, like tons of people, to quit and never come back or anything like that. But I've noticed a bit of a feeling, a vibe going around, if you will, that for people, the first day kind of led to them not getting as invested as they usually do. And then there's like a slow roll-on effect where you didn't start out as invested, you don't kind of like get as sunk into the game, and that just kind of goes on. And the end result is a bunch of people not really getting kind of as into the game in general over time, and then kind of fading.
Well,
I
it
can
didn't
see
feel
that.
like
A lot of
much of
people
a
feeling that
reset,
way.
right? You just kind of went from ritual, which is like ultimatum. It, like for me, I'm definitely one of those people where basically feels like I got a fresh start SSF, but like the game, I'm enjoying it as much as I did in ritual, which fortunately for me it was quite a lot. But I know that there's a lot of Redditors right now who are like, "Oh, I'm never playing again. Woo, they ruined the game. See you guys Friday," you know. And those guys, you know.
I think a large part of it as well. I mean, it's partially that ritual or not ritual ultimatum. I mean, I just confused the two names there. That ultimatum is not too much of a departure from a lot of other league mechanics we've seen, and most importantly, ritual, which is recent. But also that a lot of the other changes they made to existing systems, so things like new mods and buffs to Abyss Jewels, the changes to Ashling, and all the other betrayal stuff. There's so many different little changes they made to all these different endgame systems that don't really matter unless you've got a character together and you're at like level 90 plus and you're trying to perfect some gear or you're trying to grind some endgame stuff. Like all of that stuff is relevant maybe a week into the league for most players, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, depending on how slowly it takes you to get to maps and start caring about perfecting a piece of gear or upgrading your chest piece or whatever. So it feels really samey for that period of time where you're grinding the early atlas and getting through the story, because yeah, none of the bigger changes that were implemented this league matter for that period of time. You don't care about the fact that you can get cooldown recovery on Abyss Jewels now, which is really cool for some niche builds, but it doesn't matter until you're planning your second build of the league, right? You don't care about the fact that you can veiled slam an item 2 or 3 times and make something really cool with new mods, because that's something relevant to your second or third build of the league, probably. So there's none of those changes are all great. They're all excellent. None of them are a hook. None of them are something that draws your average player in unless they already have a reason to play for a week and then start a second build with a budget or something like that.
And if you couldn't get invested on day one or early on it as well, then that just magnifies that problem. Like, it takes you longer to get there, or maybe you don't get there. So I think is what a lot of people are getting into as well.
And even
Yeah,
more so
also
if you're one of those people that plays the same build over and over, and maybe you played the same build last league, and now you're looking to like perfect it and be even better. I mean, bad news. Like it's never going to be as good as it was last league, probably for the average player. So
oh no,
those people probably got pretty discouraged too. That their character, no matter what, as a baseline, is just going to be worse, regardless of whether their skill got nerfed or whatnot.
I just worry.
It's such a reality. It's like your character will never be as good as Harvest
I
League
mean,
character.
that was my main take during Harvest League itself. As someone who always I always play at least one min-max Caustic build every league. It's like I've reached the peak of this. Like, this will never get any. The only way this gets better is if they do like triple influenced items. Like, that was my whole like take with it originally, and that was kind of my. I mean, I don't want to get into the Harvest thing right now, but like that is just the core problem with that system.
Some people overreact to nerfs as well, like for the exact same reason, because it'll never be as good as it was when you played it before, even if it's only minor.
If our concerns are founded here, and if this league sort of starts to peter out a little bit as a result of the somewhat flubbed league launch, and the fact that, you know, the mechanic is fairly similar to previous ones and all of basically everything we just said, I worry that that may be interpreted by GGG as, oh, revamping old league content doesn't really work to draw in players. Because revamping old league content, in my opinion, is very important to the long-term health of the game. But if this league doesn't do well in that context, we might not see a revisit of this kind of thing, you know?
It's so frustrating. They do this shit all the time. And the perfect example of that was racing and like events where they would not market it, not talk about it, only mention it once over the course of a month. Nobody like would be genuinely interested because there's just no way to feasibly participate in this thing. And then they would go, oh, it just doesn't work. Lol. Like, we're just not gonna do it again because it doesn't work. Like, I beg that they don't treat it the same way this time around, because this I think what they did, it was great, but the way it was handled at the end with all the issues was not so much, unfortunately. But I think that's a super strong point, Octavian.
In regards to the whole revamping of the systems, one thing they've done, and one thing that, well, both done and not done, is they removed the bonus first and foremost, like the Awakener bonus, right? That you can start building towards. So that removed missions. Then they nerfed Harvest, but not for all the crafting stuff, but they also nerfed it in terms of how many master missions we got. And then they nerfed the base master mission. So they introduced this like new master mission system that people will probably look towards as to, oh, I'll use this instead of Harvest this league. With the idea of, well, last time with Harvest, I could like, oh, I could get this thing, and I could like use this to upgrade my build. And then I'll try and engage with all these new systems. And then you try, and then you find out you have to complete 12 maps to maybe unlock the master mission you want. And then you're like, okay, so I have to go through the entire atlas to get to the Watchstone stage, which is doing 10-way Maven stuff, to even get the chance to get maybe one of the 3 Watchstones that I need, that I can then alternate role into finally giving myself an opportunity to engage with all these new cool systems. I think that's selling the league on new master stuff and not giving players a way to engage with it when it's one of their main selling points. I mean, there is a way, but it's far away for the average casual gamer. It's really just lopsided, and you basically you just I don't know. You kind of shoot yourself
It's
in the foot from the
backloaded
beginning.
rather than front-loaded reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what I mentioned earlier. There isn't a hook right now.
Mhm.
There isn't enough of a hook, I guess, that pulls people into the end game in an early enough stage of it to make them want to push to the point where you got master missions enhanced by your watchstones, and you've got the Zana points in the middle of the Atlas and all that stuff.
Couple this with, I think at the moment in PoE we have to run more maps than ever before to like progress, and the maps are taking longer and longer each league as well as like content is getting added. I think that early progression before things do get exciting, because the Maven Atlas stuff is fantastic now. I loved last league once things were rolling. It was so good, and I'm looking forward to like being there again. But I'm realizing this league, because I haven't been going as hard as usual with league starts, since I only did like 3 hours the first day. It takes a really long time to get to that point.
Is the solution then to make more halfway points, so to speak? So to try and incorporate more interesting content earlier on in the Atlas, and just so you don't change how current endgame functions, but instead you add more rewarding things earlier? Or is the solution to take the whole system and scrunch it down? Cut out some of the stuff and make it so you get to the top of it faster?
It's one of those things where, because of the way that it's set up, that I can just talk from my experiences doing it in SSF. So the Watchstone system early on and the Maven system early on kind of doesn't want players to stay in one region for a very long period of time. You can, in theory, just like unlock one region and just stay in that one Regestone with like 3 or 4 Watchstones and be like, cool. But then you're not progressing everything else. So you're kind of put into a system where you because you need to spread wide early on, you don't really reap the benefits of like, oh, I've unlocked this thing. I've been doing a lot of just power farming low red, so I have just been sitting in one region with everything unlocked, and it feels great. But then I haven't like set up my Atlas at all. I'm super behind in terms of Watchstone progression. I've been getting really good rewards out of staying in this one like region with my Maven shit unlocked, but then it's like, in terms of actual progression, I'm super far behind everyone else.
It feels pretty bad too, right? Because you're doing this thing that works, and now you're forcing yourself to do this thing that it feels like you're having to start all over again. And I got like baited into that when Maven came out, and for whatever reason, I just wasn't dropping the invitation. So I was like, well, a clear solution is to try and do other regions. And I was like, oh, I have like no passives and nothing to do here. And it felt kind of weird. I just don't understand how the thing, because what Octavian was talking about, like about scrunching it down with Awakener, I think the system works, but I don't understand the purpose of Maven. Like, is Maven the end goal? Is she just like another boss? I feel like she's more of another boss, and like the boss fights themselves offer enough of a fight, but then actually getting to the Maven forever. But then she doesn't feel like an endgame boss to me the same way Awakener does. But then you fight Awakener the same way when he's low level as you do when he's high awakening level. And so yeah, I just don't quite understand what they could do with Maven to have it feel like this endgame thing without having to go through the grind the way they did with Awakener.
Is it because there aren't like gradations of Maven in the same way that there are of Cyrus? So you
I mean,
don't
that
have...
would be a solution, but like, does that really work? I mean,
I don't
it works for Elder. Kind
You'd
of.
have to redesign some aspects of the Maven system entirely. I mean, you'd have to have either Maven keys to Watchstones in the same way that Cyrus does, and so you need more Watchstones in your Atlas, more powerful or less powerful Maven, or you have, I guess, the old Elder solution. How did old Elder work? Oh, he spawned like on your Atlas in various
little
areas.
blobs.
So no, that wouldn't really work. You'd have to have like fragments, I guess, and different types of fragments for different tiers of Maven, which just sounds convoluted and unnecessary.
Maybe that's the point, that they're paired up, right? Because it was Shaper that was kind of the like Awakener. Shaper was the Elder. Yeah, and then
the Elder counterpart.
Yeah. No. Wait, it was Shaper and Elder, and now it's Awakener and Maven. So then Maven is Shaper, and Awakener is Elder, in which like you have this thing that you progress a long time and you only fight once, versus this thing that you fight in increments like you do
I
with
see what you
Awakener.
mean.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
the,
where you
the,
fight
the,
him
no-
4 times and
There's
then
no
you get to
lower
the
level
big one.
shapers. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
problem is like there's nothing wrong with having these big endgame grinds, but the problem is like you didn't have to kill Uber Elder to then start feeling like your Atlas was progressing. It was you would
Mhm.
progress your Atlas fully, and then you've got this big fight. Whereas now it's kind of I need to kill Maven to unlock my passives, and mapping I do before unlocking my passives feels bad. Like that's the issue with it. Like if the passives were front loaded, then it wouldn't matter that it takes a really long time to get to Maven. But it takes such a long time to get to Maven to then get your middle unlock passives, and then when you have people who want to farm specific regions because they think so, like for the whole harvest thing of like having that node being on a certain part of the tree, like that just causes problems. But while I think this is a very interesting conversation, what about those streamer bans that I wanted to talk about half an hour ago? Have we got anything to say about that?
Darn. We almost
Dude.
debated it.
They're good.
We were ban evading.
Right, Rice?
I mean, I ranted about it a long time today, having seen MP's video, kind of discussing the situation. I mean, I don't want to go over it too much because it's kind of an odd subject. From my perspective, the bans were warranted. I think MP realizes that now. The way the whole situation was handled from many angles was just, yeah, most unfortunate in his case. But then simultaneously, I do not want to give any like voice to the people that harassed him, that attacked him, the personal attacks, what was allowed on Reddit in terms of like actually. I mean, it was just really personal, and those were genuine attacks, genuine like death threats, and it was insane. And people were trying to handle it as much as possible, but the degree of it was stunning. And now we're not talking about the 500 circle jerking redditors that usually do this community like wide attack. And yeah, it was just fucking really disappointing because again, to me, I think criticism totally warranted. Whether you saw the whole thing as an exploit was one thing. To me, it wasn't really an exploit, but he did like abuse it. But also, he didn't do it to the extent that some people described it, where he did it for hours and he was trying to fucking ruin the economy on the stuff. No, he did it 3 times. That was it.
There are a lot of people though that really like dislike Imperial and his group because of how much money they make, and when those players compare to what they're able to make in the same amount of time, it's far, far, far less because they're far less efficient and don't have a team like all working together like MP does. So they really do feel like it has a negative effect on the economy overall. So like I can't say that it's super surprising that MP got as much hate as he did. Because like he's one of those teams that like pushes, like they show up on the like, oh, this person entered the area first all over the ladder. He's part of one of those groups. So like it feels bad with the like priority queue stuff, and they're getting to go ahead and like push for all these things first and like further like skew the economy. And I can understand where those people are coming from. Like I think it's pretty wrong to like attack someone. um I do think MP really cares and really tries to put out good interesting content that like no one else is doing because no one else like has that system put together. um But yeah, beyond that, like I stayed out of just about all of it because I was pushing for 100, and that was the only thing on my mind. So why won't this website load? Am I dead? Okay, it seems to be back. So yeah, I was pushing to 100. I mean, like, I got rank 15, rank 3 raider. So, like, that was where a majority of my attention was going. Um, so yeah, I didn't like, and I don't stream on Twitch either. So I'm disconnected from a lot of the stuff that was happening going on. So
So he
yeah,
found out one time, then he did it 3 times. He reported it. A lot of his story probably got missed out. There was some communication, like among their team, when it came to this. I'm sure there's like more to it, but it really is very reminiscent to me. And I compare it to like the Alinity situation where she like put her cat behind her back and dropped it down like a meter down, and she fucking yeeted her cat out of a bazooka out the window to another country. It's like, no, there's definitely a fuck up there, but the degree of it is not nearly as extreme as people are describing it, right? So that's kind of my TLDR, except it's long. Yep.
I mean,
The
in terms
opposite
of
of
a
a trivia.
community response, I feel like this has been festering for a while now, and people weren't willing to, at least not a lot of people, were not too upfront about the harvest situation either. And it's kind of been growing a bit earlier as well. I can't really put like specifics on it, but I've definitely seen, attacks towards GGG that people have just been like, yeah, but you just make the game better, right? But it's equally bad when it's against GG as it's when it's against a player, and I feel like there's just been this, people have just been accepting to be able to, I don't know, go beyond what's like reasonable amounts of criticism or even like threats within the community. I mean, there was on Twitter, and I mean streamers as well throughout the whole harvest thing were so inappropriate in the way that they were talking about developers and people and anyone who had either an opinion against or for. And I think if you wanted to change, well, then you can't just nitpick into the most extreme situations. You have to start actually looking at, when it, like when someone's doing something against, something you do.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this subject is very near and dear to my heart because I would say that over the years, I've been really irresponsible in this case. And there were a couple situations where, uh, without realizing it, I pushed the situation to like a point that I never wanted to go. But then it's still my responsibility to not do that. And so to see that on such a wild scale gives me, a lot of perspective as to how I handled my own behavior in the past. And yeah, it was just really, really fucking disappointing. Yeah, for sure. And then also they should fucking ban the people who are encouraging the abuse, okay? The streamers, ban them. How come MP gets banned,
Well,
but those guys don't get banned? They were like, yeah, exploit, go do the thing.
That's
Why don't
that's
you keep
that's
doing
what I
it?
wanted to say. I think the bans are bullshit because I have no problem with if you're like, okay, we're gonna ban people for promoting stuff, good, but then ban people for promoting stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's actually complete bullshit that MP got banned. Meanwhile, you have people making videos saying, do this thing. I'm explaining exactly how to do it. You will not get banned. Do this. The video gets way more hits, way more traction than.
that's what I was saying yesterday with this. It's like it seems like a bad faith ban on GGG's part, like like against a player who's like a large creator in the community that literally like what he does is try and push content like that, push it to its limits. So yeah, I'm still pretty against the ban. Like that, what like if it was something like duping or like whatnot, like that was in the game. it was very easily doable, very easily repeatable, and they didn't do it over and over and over. They weren't doing that for hours. Like I bet I could like pick people myself off the ladder who were engaging in that exploit for hours. So
And anyone who was watching MP do it 3 times, like, I think that is complete and utter rubbish.
Yep.
And I spoke to GGG about it. I was like, I think this isn't, but you know, I'm not the person handling who does and doesn't get, you know, the bans. Unfortunately.
From the outside looking in, it can look rather inconsistent. And I mean, it is honestly rather inconsistent as to what is considered an exploit and what isn't. I would suggest to anyone who finds anything that looks remotely like an exploit that you report that as soon as possible. I don't know. You don't really want to, if you care about your PoE account and all that, you don't really want to risk this kind of thing because it is hard to tell as someone looking from the outside and being part of the community, like what counts. So
Yeah,
at the very
I
least,
tested it.
ask whether it's okay if you find something that looks questionable. Because like something like, say, the ability to imprint sextants last league, which eventually got removed and has now been just nuked from orbit because of the changes with split beasts. But that you could argue is an exploit if you wanted to, but you could also argue it's 2 systems that are both working as intended that have an unintended consequence when put together. Which, like, arguably the ultimatum stuff wasn't that. Ultimatum was just ultimatum acting a way it wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
There was no second system being used there in order to make ultimatum do something weird.
Whoa,
It was
okay,
just
I wouldn't.
ultimatum doing something it was never intended to do. Infinite
I
spawn
wouldn't
monsters.
agree with that.
No?
Like, not at all. No, I mean, they were in a group of people, and the mobs were spawning like normal, and then one person would step out of the portal, and it would keep spawning mobs while the duration wouldn't be decreasing, so you could spawn a lot of mobs.
But
they were
you can
dealing with
you
the
can replicate that solo. Like, it's not
yep, you
it's
can.
not like a stretch. Yeah, you can do it
Yeah.
solo.
Do the mobs keep spawning?
Yeah.
I never tried. Do the
Yeah.
mobs keep spawning even if you step out?
Yeah.
Like new waves spawn, not just the existing ones? Okay.
I mean, it was changed now, but back then you
Yeah,
could do it. So it's like, how can you tell really as an individual? I mean, it's a matter of opinion because I know a lot of people disagree and they see this as an absolute exploit and very obviously like an issue. You're spawning an infinite amount of mobs, but you're still dealing with those mobs the same way you would normally. You're not like killing them in any sort of cheesy way. Your character is still supposed to be able to handle the content. Again, to me, definitely something to be careful of and cautious. The way you described it, Octavian, where it's like this thing that you should really consider whether this should be working this way.
Where is
Honestly, I don't know, man.
I think the
They-
closest comparison is actually, I probably shouldn't have brought up imprint beasts because they're strelatively different. I think the closest comparison is actually in Heist League, the XP farming
Yeah.
strats that people were doing with the
There you
robots.
go. Yeah.
Like that though did have a hard cap. I believe.
Wait a minute, what is this? A random amulet. Oh, I could be like upgrading. I have 5 of these. If I pull one of these out. Alright, internet needs to cooperate for a second. Yeah, so like I'm upgrading talismans. Is what this is. If you put 5 of the same base type of talismans, you can upgrade it from a tier 1 to a tier 2 talisman. Okay, so I need to keep this. This is 10% quant as well. I'm gonna need those for later in this stream. I guess I'm upgrading talismans. I need to scan these to make sure there's nothing super good. Since the internet has come back, I will hit the play button again, maybe.
I believe,
Yeah.
because I think they stopped giving XP after 3 waves, and I'm surprised, or
But
after 3 respawns.
Ultimatum has a hard cap. Like with a timer,
Did
mobs
it
stop
as well?
spawning. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the problem is like the mobs stop spawning, but after 4 minutes you've killed so many, you've like caused so much loot strain on the servers. You're like just basically just like wrecking the servers.
So
And
the
also
hard
just to
cap was-
clarify, because some people got confused earlier in chat, I don't have an issue with MP being banned. I have an issue with other people not being banned, publicizing it way more than MP did on his stream.
Yep.
If they want to ban
100%.
MP, that's fine, but then ban everyone who did it. And that inconsistency is what I have a problem with. I'm sorry, Octavian.
I think there's, I don't know, if you manipulate something like that is obviously an exploit, and you're doing it publicly, you're putting yourself at risk, and
Yeah, for sure.
the ban makes sense in that context. But I think there is like some amount of blame to be laid at the feet of GGG for having a 4-minute hard cap on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a 3-wave hard cap on heist. This is obviously a kind of content that they're aware can be dangerous. 4 minutes is a huge number of monsters. They could have easily put like a 40-second hard cap on that, and it never would have happened, or it would have happened, but not nearly the same extent.
I mean,
I'm
there was a hard
surprised.
cap on this too. I think it was 40 waves, where it would just finally stop. I mean,
Yeah, that's what Tarky said earlier. I
That's
just
what
went
this-
off what Tarky told me.
yeah, that's a decision that somebody made. At 40 waves, this stopped spawning, so they must have like considered it to some degree, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Good
If there
point.
is a hard cap, I mean, does that just happen? Is 40 just like the magic number? Does it just happen accidentally? I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm kind of surprised about like it being a league-long ban for people that did this. It seemed like it didn't happen for very long. It also seems like when we start to break it down, it really feels like one of those things where it's like, I'm just min-maxing the farming of this mechanic, very
Yeah.
similar to Heist. If you play PoE as a min-maxer, then there's a pretty difficult line to draw on some things. I don't know where this falls on the side of the line between this is just min-maxing farming this. I'm just finding the best way to farm this versus this is quite clearly abusing a bug or something broken or an exploit.
Would it work if you just never stood in the stone circles? Did that work?
Yep.
Yep.
Apparently it did, yeah, which is
The same
so hardly
system.
seems like an exploit. Right?
And I found that out accidentally because I didn't understand what the stone circles were. And seriously, I spent like 3 minutes running around in that killing stuff, and the first one of those stone circle encounters I did, constantly just repeating it. Like, it accidentally did that.
Right?
If you're just bad at the mechanic? Is
Yeah,
that
if you're bad at it's the same as if you were doing survival and you like stepped outside of the circle all the time because your build was really squishy, you would be spawning more monsters. Is like that's effectively the same thing. It's just to a degree, right, or an extent that you were
Are you
stepping
sure
outside.
it
of.
works
Obviously
with the
doing
stone
with
circles?
group,
Because
stuff like that.
okay, iLeague started with Vol Ground Slam, and mobs that don't give
They're all
loot or
banned.
XP, mobs that don't give loot or XP don't give Vol Souls either. It's a pretty easy way of telling whether or not you're getting something back from the monsters you're killing.
Oh
And-
no! It definitely if you're outside of the stone circles, it definitely wasn't giving you like anything.
Yeah, I wasn't
Have to
getting
be all the way out
almost
of the
any souls.
actual circle, right?
Oh, I don't think it was working with the stone circles at all. If
The
you were
survival
outside,
was
it's
the
the
one, right?
duration ones
Yeah.
that you had
Okay.
5 seconds to exit and come back in
Yeah.
for to constantly like reset that back and forth. And you
So-
could do that as an individual as well.
I have to imagine that the mechanic went through like multiple iterations of design, and at some point, maybe you couldn't leave the circle. Like they may have had that. This is pure speculation. They might have had that at a previous iteration of Ultimatum, and so it wasn't a problem with survival infinitely spawning monsters because you couldn't leave to do that anyway. But it was a problem with the stone circles, so they fixed that. And then they made it so you can leave the circle of Ultimatum for one reason or another, and it didn't get changed. That's my speculation on it.
But there's a difference between like a unintended mechanic and abuse. I think in this case, and exploit, because abuse, I mean, that's the frequency of usage in my perspective. So they definitely didn't intend for this to work this way, for sure. But there's so many things that they never intended to work a certain way.
I mean,
that are
Eldering.
like staples of Path of Exile right now. Like I gave the example of Righteous Fire earlier. It was intended to be a support and people started making builds out of it where they were killing mobs with it, and now it's an entire archetype. Like, because that wasn't intended, do we treat it as an exploit now? Because people were making righteous fire builds? I mean, it was out of the ordinary for sure, and there was clearly something wrong with this. And again, in my opinion, MP's ban was warranted because they noticed that there was something wrong, and they persisted in, as they described it, limit testing it, which, you know, it's kind of a, yeah, I think if you're having to limit test something that you've just bug reported, then you clearly know that you're at risk of getting banned for something, right?
It's a valid point.
So, yeah, but in this case, I to describe it as an exploit, again, it just in my opinion is a bit of a stretch.
There's also a difference
fucked up.
between using a skill and generating loot.
Hmm.
Those are like separate things. Because like if you're, let's say you're trying out like Righteous Fire and you're just playing around with it, you notice it starts killing monsters, and it's like, am I just gonna stop? So I need to turn it off now because it's killing. Or you can't really do that, right? Like with the there's a clear intent to generate more items by running in and out of the circle and standing there and waiting. So I think, like, remember there was a BV bug as well with level 1 BV.
Cool wins.
Okay.
Starts killing monsters, and it's like, am I just gonna stop? So I need to turn it off now because it's killing. Or you can't really do that, right? Like with the there's a clear intent to generate more items by running in and out of the circle and standing there and waiting. So I think, like, remember there was a BV bug as well with level 1 BV, and you could like use poison on it because it gained the scaling damage modifier as well. Right? So like, oh, I'm making a oh, I can just stack this this modifier, make a great poison build, and just use a level 1 BV. It's like, was that an exploit? Like, you make it a really powerful character, but it was like, that's a different line, I think, versus what was it, the League Stones, where you could dupe them or, you know, generate monsters infinitely, basically. Like, there's a different level between monster generation and item generation, and then playing the game. In terms of like how they go in and justify whether or not something should be, I don't know, an exploit. I think also, if I can just on the exploit part, I think streamers and content creators in general should be under higher scrutiny than the regular player.
Yeah, no, I agree with
Sure.
that. 100%.
The reasoning being that doing something that could be construed as an exploit publicly spreads the information and makes the problem worse more rapidly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Especially
I
since-
figured that was it. I just wanted to clarify.
Yes. No. But
Yeah.
that is why.
Especially since in this case they made a bug report, and that bug report actually got removed from the forum as what everybody assumes is a form of like trying to minimize
Yes.
the
Yeah.
spread of information. So again, with that, we already know that there's something wrong.
Also, final thing just on it, then we can move on to something else. Just because another thing I keep seeing, this constant thing of like, oh, but he knew about this because MP and his group are on alpha. As someone who tested the fuck, like I had like 50 hours on the alpha for this league, I can tell you for certain he's not fucking on it. There's like 10 people who test it, and there's a difference between the alpha that some people have access to and the in-house QA. That's completely separate, like whatever. But yeah, and I will finish because Beck said I could tell this alpha story. People are saying that my league RNG is OP. I'm still upset because I got a Maloney's mechanism and a 5-link impulsor in white maps testing on the alpha, and I just, that made me want to. I like, okay, I'm done. I'm never testing again. This is bullshit. So yeah,
Wasted.
wasted RNG.
Thank you, Darky.
Yeah.
Darky, the alpha tester, great.
I did keep playing, but it was very difficult after that. It was very. I was like, oh, okay, I'm done now.
Bug report. I'm getting loot. Okay.
I
Never doing
did.
this
I
again.
did actually type up a thing which was report if I don't get these dropping on the live server, then this is a bullshit. But I don't think they took...
This is why your game's dead.
Yeah, I don't think they took that very
Thanks.
seriously. So with all of that stupid drama stuff out of the way, how has everyone's actual league start been? What builds are we playing? How are they performing? Ziggy, what are you playing? And all that good stuff.
I am playing some Reap Inquisitor self-cast with the new low life stuff. I basically wanted to embrace a lot of the new mechanics and play around with it. So I'm using Petrified Blood and I'm self-casting Reap so that I'm not cheating by playing Spellslinger and avoiding paying the life costs, which is cheating. I was so disappointed when I learned that
Good idea.
Spellslinger doesn't like cost any life or reserve any life with these new skills, because the way it works is Spellslinger has its own built-in mana reservation base, which then gets multiplied by support gems. So I think you're literally exploiting and should be banned if you're Spellslingering with Reap
Got him.
or Sanguinate, by the way.
Excuse me.
Totally not. So yeah, it's it was a pretty good league starter. It's super fun skill. I think like they did a pretty good job of like creating a package of new mechanics here and putting a new archetype of skill in, and it actually being pretty well supported, because that's what I was worried about whenever there's like a new archetype that potentially it's not really going to have enough in the game to interact with it to support it. But there's a lot of pre-existing stuff that works well. There's a lot of pre-existing low life stuff that became pretty fun with the new 50% threshold for low life and Petrified Blood. So I felt like there was like plenty of like fun things to mess around and play with. But it is feeling like at the moment that although it was a pretty solid league starter, it's done pretty well into early maps, I think it's going to be difficult to scale Reap self-cast beyond like 2 to 3 million. And I don't know if that's because I've been looking at like some
Inquisitor?
different setups.
That's kind of every dot build. Every dot build really kind of struggles to find the DPS like for the in-game bosses. It's just kind of generic for any dot build.
It's because of
right?
Inquisitor.
It's because of Inquisitor. Why the Inquisitor? I don't.
Hold on. So multiple questions. So I was looking at both hit-based and the hybrid thing, because they seem to be trying to encourage this hybrid thing where you're doing hit and dot together, which is not really super well supported in PoE typically. You want to go one or the other a lot. But there's the new like support gem and stuff like that. That's pretty powerful payoff for like trying to do a bit of both. But you can kind of just skip the whole scaling the hit side of things and just use like Worm Flask to get 50% buff on the damage over time anyway. So I'm doing like the
I had
hybrid
that
approach,
thought.
and
That's a good idea.
It's going like okay, but even looking at like pure hit-based setups and stuff like that, yeah, it's like 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay, and it's back. I know my stream's coming in and out, so I'm trying to pause this. Oh, it's
Inquisitor because I wanted
not
it to
working.
be like a league start character. It had the sustain built in with the regen and support for hybrid with low life, whilst also having nice self-cast payoffs in the cast speed and AoE. As I said, I didn't want to do Spellslinger, which is like a lot of what Scions and stuff are doing. And so for League Star, I wanted that built-in regen and stuff, which I really can't complain about, like extremely survivable character. So far, I just I'm losing motivation to push it much further because I don't really see it having a super high ceiling anyway without a lot of effort. But Amy's playing Exsanguinate Traps because we've been co-oping the whole way, and that's looking really good. Exsanguinate seems like the new Arc Trap in a way. The chaining looks super satisfying, and power-wise seems pretty solid. Seems to scale a little bit better than Reap. I've been getting a bunch of people telling me like math, and I'm no expert on that, but apparently like Exsanguinate ends up being a little bit better than Reap, even self-cast, where Reaps should probably come out ahead because of the corrupting blood stacks, or the blood charges stacks. So I'm a little unsure of how they balanced against each other.
That's not entire. That's like a half truth, I would say, because Reap you just need to cast once every its full duration, where you need to cast Exsanguinate 3 times its full duration. So if you're depending on how you're playing, whether or not if you can just afford to stand completely still and just keep casting, and you have enough cast speed and all that, then sure, Exsanguinate comes out a little higher because you need 3 stacks versus the 1 stack that just kind of keeps going. And you can also attack with Reap way further away. Like you can go to the edge of the screen, right? Versus
Yeah,
having to
you
be
can
like,
you can off screen with it, especially with Cascade, but that's kind of like tempered by the fact that if you're not using Cascade, you'll miss mobs that are moving towards you because it
yes,
doesn't have a dead spot like everyone's saying because it's actually just like it's a solid AoE. There's not like a random circle in the middle that doesn't hit things. But what happens is you target a monster, and if they're moving forwards fast enough towards you, they'll come behind AoE because it's not a big circle, but rather more of a D shape. So they'll end up. So you'll end up missing with it a bunch, which feels really frustrating. So I've used Cascade, which is fantastic on it. But yeah, I wouldn't want to like play it without Cascade. So whereas I don't know, I think Chain is more powerful in comparison. So like, yes, you can off screen with it, but Chain Exsanguinate probably is stronger. It was definitely stronger clear, especially if you're dumping them on traps or something like that. What's that?
It's the more well balanced skill that does
Yeah.
like everything you want it to.
Yeah.
I was going to ask what you thought about the damage cone, because Reap does have a very unintuitive damage cone, especially with the visual, because that was my issue with it. Whereas, like, from the visual, you'd assume it's a big 360, but it's not. It's like a... I wouldn't say it's a D,
because
it's more like a cutout of a pie or something. It's got like a little bit missing.
It's like it's weird because like you take something like Cleave, right, which is similar but focused on your character because it's a melee skill,
Yes.
and you'll never miss with that because the monsters run to you, up to you, and then try and attack you, and then you're cleaving in melee. But then you like take that same melee skill, and then you're able to project it at range, and then all of a sudden it becomes a problem. So it's kind of, I don't know, that's just a weird thing. Take like a melee thing that works in melee and doesn't work as well out of melee, oddly enough.
I haven't played with any of the new skills at all. That seems odd, the way Reap is working, based on the way he's explaining it. It almost looked like it would do like a full like 360-degree like swipe around you, which I guess is not doing that. $157.
I was talking to Harishi about that. I was saying that it would feel better if it was forced to be cast on my character, which I don't think I would ever norm for. That I want less right. So, have you played with Reprise?
No, I was gonna ask you guys about it.
Trust me, play it and you'll know exactly. Like it takes a really long time to kind of get used to it, because when I was playing around with it, I wasn't using Cascade. And
I've played Sweep before. You're telling me that it's supposed to work like Sweep?
No, so
no.
You would like it to, but it
yeah,
doesn't.
if it played like Sweep, it would feel better. So okay, basically,
That's what you're telling me.
I thought for sure that it was gonna play like Sweep. I guess it just doesn't.
I heard that correctly.
Yes. So basically, Rise, the damage cone is sort of like that. So what will often happen is when you click on an enemy, as he says, if that enemy in the middle moves forward ever so slightly,
I
you miss
get that
it.
part,
So
yeah.
it's just you eventually get used to it, but it's a whole thing.
It's like a windscreen wiper.
Yeah.
The radius is also quite small. It's not the largest AoE, which makes it even harder because you can only scale it so far.
I was thinking so much about Reap like early on, like in the pre-league stuff. I guess it's like, I don't know. They're making it sound pretty bad from my perspective.
5%, it's not that big.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, because my big thing was I thought these skills are going to be the sort of thing that you can kind of, like a league starter, not a pretty good all the way through, and then like the top end kind of ends up falling off. Like if you, is that how it worked out? Was the gearing fun? Like, could you recommend the new like blood archetype as this?
I mean, if you go like Insanguate and stuff, like you'll get through all the content. Sorry, I'll let you go on.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what I'm saying is like I actually am pretty impressed with the entire package as a whole. Like I think you did a pretty good job of creating fairly well balanced skills this time, as opposed to other league starts where we've gotten skills where they were a big mistake to start as. I was like, I don't think you would have like really regretted starting the new skills this time. This isn't whatever that lightning skill was that everyone regretted rolling. Like these are pretty good. You can certainly get through all the content on them, and they're pretty fun. It's a fun package. You get lots of fun mechanics to play around with. Petrified Blood's really cool, and there's lots of fun budget payoffs that you can interact with. So overall, like pretty good. Give it a go for sure. It's no Crackling Lance or Stormbind.
I think
far as
you
the
might
Combined.
quite. So when my experience with them, I was kind of like, oh, these feel really weak. I don't understand why you'd pick them compared to the other dot archetypes, because like with the cold dot, you've got the chill. With ignite, you've got prolif. With chaos dot, you've got so many amazing skills. You've got like ED regen.
Ugh.
I feel like if you think about it from the point of view of it's the most consistent dot, because there's no like I need to maintain EE or EO or get wither stacks. Like, it's just consistent. It just does its whole thing.
Why do you think bleed is so good?
Exactly, right? So it's just like when you do want to push that insane level of gear, you're gonna have to have like the cluster jewels. You're gonna have the good gear to like really push up to this highest thing. But it is so much more consistent that I feel like it's actually like gotten quite a good niche for it. I don't know if you would agree with that, Noogie, having played your Exanuate character.
I think you're underestimating the power of the skill. Get it? It's very good. You can take it quite far. It has really good damage scaling, or you can slap so many different auras on there. I think the main issue this thing has, and I think this is an issue for a lot of builds in PoE, is the goddamn cluster jewels, and how much of certain builds' power are just locked behind that thing. And yeah, that's like my
especially.
main issue. You
Isn't
can
it- Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
you can take it quite far without cluster jewels, I would say, and you can do low life setups. I would say in hardcore, low life is a bit sketchy. It's a bit scary, I think. Especially once you get into like end game boss fighting, because there's a lot of bursty dot, and you're not very happy against that. But other than that, I mean, you without too much problems can push 1-2 million dot damage. That's quite with like full block builds and all that, with like 8,000 plus effective, or like
Yeah, and
8 people. It's
the
very
consistency
good.
being key, right?
Yeah,
Because that's
Exsanguinate with
what really
chain.
sold
Just,
me on it.
if you get good cast speed, just like poop, like, and the whole screen just goes, and they're dead.
Oh,
It's really
now
good
I
with chain.
understand. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's really good with chain.
I think
I
it'll
think-
end up being I think
I
it'll
think
end up being a
it's very
staple
good.
league starter
Yeah.
going forwards.
Yeah, like I would say the SSF has a problem because cluster jewels they're the worst. They're just the
As
worst.
It's true.
As a damage over time main, I mean, I feel you on that. Especially, on SSF, it's every time. All damage every time really benefits a lot from cluster jewels, despite
As
like
mediums.
the double nerf that they've already inflicted on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's because the passive tree doesn't have nearly as much support as the cluster jewels do. Like the
Mhm.
cluster jewel numbers could be, I don't know, 2/3 what they are even now after nerfs, but they're bigger numbers than the numbers that don't exist elsewhere.
And they
Like,
offer
they
really
did add a
nice
couple good
utility.
wheels. I don't want to say there's literally nothing. The new Fizz dot wheels they added near like the duelist
very
slash
good.
Temp-
Very
or sorry,
strong.
Marauder
Yeah.
/ Templar area. Those ones are pretty good, but that is like 3 wheels, right? There's
Yes.
one between Marauder Duelist and then 2 between Marauder Templar.
Yep.
And some builds probably can't even stretch down to Duelist if you're doing something
you're
on the
probably
top
only
of the
getting
tree with
2
it.
Yeah.
of those.
Like the Scions can maybe get all of them. If you're going down to Duelist to get like the instant War Cry or something for instant Enduring Cry, I could see that being good. But I don't think most of the other versions of the builds can get all 3 unless they're anointing one.
I don't think you even need all 3. On my build, I'm a Scion. I have 2. I don't even go down to the bottom left one. You can get a lot of. I mean, you can get global damage. You can go to Shadow. You
Mhm.
could be Elementalist with golems.
You could get
could
cluster
be Necromancer with minion damage. I mean, there's
You
a
could
lot
get
of.
cluster jewels.
You could get cluster jewels. Yes, you could get cluster jewels. You could be a trickster
Yeah.
with the dot nodes there. I mean, there's a lot of options for this skill. And since auras, I think people are sleeping a little bit on this aura. This like idea that you're getting like this, like, oh, you're not paying the cost of the but you're paying a massive cost by going Spellslinger.
Oh,
Because you-
Spellslinger is such a fucking mistake for these abilities. Fucking preach,
It
nigga.
is very good if you are zooming fast maps. I think one build that's probably one of the I could see it being one of the fastest zoomers would be Gladiator, with you dot everything up with bleeds and then they die to all the fist degens. And so you KB the entire screen and they just go.
Isn't that
That's
was it the Soul Self on
um,
hardcore or softcore race?
Yes,
Like,
one
of those
Tower
races.
Bra, I think, was the
Yeah,
one who got
it's the
first with
Gladiator
that build.
Excitement build.
Yeah, I thought Sis was gonna play it. He talked about it. It was a really good idea. Just having the pop. It's really fast.
Doing that on a Glad works, but like I've seen a lot of people doing like Trickster Spellslinger, and they haven't really been like the only way they take advantage of it is like, oh, I frenzy and the spells happen. Like, it's such a massive waste when you think about it, because as Nugi says, they've got all these auras that scale it, but also I feel like people kind of sleep on the fact that they're blood magic spells, and the fact that you spend your life, that's a good thing because it means you can
Unleash.
I mean, Unleash, like, on a skill that has, like, a duration, like a Winter Orb or Blade Vortex, Unleash is really powerful to get you, like, your max stacks and whatnot.
Was this one of
Dude,
the main topics today?
No,
Unleash
I would
like
much
a
rather talk about this.
baseline.
Go on.
Unleash as a baseline with no scaling is like 112% damage multiplier. And it's super easy to scale it too. It's ridiculous. You have to use it on a self-caster. Otherwise you're throwing, unless you're like pledging or something. Why do you think
Using
nobody plays
Unleash.
self-cast?
Why do you
It's
think
like one
nobody
of the-
plays self-cast on Leash? Why do you think everyone plays Spell Echo eventually?
Yeah,
It's
like
like one of-
way down the line, sure, with things like Dark Pact maybe, but that's pretty much
No.
it.
The only reason you do some Unleash is because you have like double skills that you can take advantage of. If you use a single skill and you self-cast and you go Unleash, you just have no damage.
Okay,
Unleash is
give
like-
me an example. Give me 3 builds like that. Where
Like
Unleash
what?
like give me like 3 builds where it gets outdone. On softcore, I would totally agree with you at a certain point, but
Every
realistically,
self-cast that's not double skill or Archmage.
so like what, Dark Pact? And that's it.
I don't know about Dark Pact. What Dark Pact, Ball Lightning,
Ah, come on! Here we go. Logging back into the games, usually science back. It's been a real pain in the butt last few minutes. Okay.
Arc, Spark,
Well, Lightning way better with
Freezing
Unleash.
Pulse.
I mean,
Spark way better.
if you have a really good Vol skill, especially because those were buffed, Unleash doesn't do shit for that, so that's a reason to move away from Unleash. But you also probably wouldn't want
True.
Spell Echo because that doesn't work with Vol skills.
Double true. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the way to balance it. Just like Vol skills, and then you can't have any supports on them, so you have to use like the shitty supports to be able to use it. I mean, I do that with the Flame Blast, you know, where infused
Flame Blast?
channeling is really good, but I go with like a shittier thing so that it affects my Vol Flame Blast, except for Vol Blight. Just kind of it sucks that you have to do it that way. But
Oh, I guess no, because okay. Octavian, talk about your league stuff, because that's also a Vol skill.
Yeah, so I league started with a Slayer Ground Slam that I think I was a little too out of left field with in a few ways. I think probably the best approach to a Ground Slam / Vol Ground Slam build, having seen a number of them now and having played the Slayer variant that I did, is either Champion, or a Berserker if you want to push higher damage with an RT setup and have it more consistent. Because I went a crit Slayer route, which got me through to endgame, and I did T16 Conquerors, and I did Shaper and Elder Guardians and stuff like that, so it did handle it, but it felt really bad whenever I did a regular Ground Slam that didn't crit, because if I did a Vol Ground Slam that did crit, it would just obliterate anything it touched, and then after that I do a regular Ground Slam and it doesn't crit, and it's like, dink, I did nothing. So with Vol Ground Slam, I would recommend RT builds over crit builds, even if their potential damage ceiling is significantly lower, just because that consistency is really, really important. But the build is effective. Vol Ground Slam is amazing for ultimatums because stun is amazing for ultimatums. And Slayer was really nice for ultimatums too, because 20% cull versus the big thick rare boys is really, really good. So it was a pretty fun league starter. I'm actually much more excited about my second build though,
Go on.
which is an extremely exciting concept. It's Archmage Cremation.
Ooh.
Oh, wait a
But
Oh
minute.
god.
but spicy because I'm using Trinity and I'm a Scion and I'm dodge based, not block based. So we're
bad.
doing
By
what's
spicy,
that?
you mean bad. Okay.
No, I don't mean bad because this thing has more damage than any of the Necro versions I've put together before.
Sure.
While having capped dodge and Wind Dancer and high evasion and fortify.
I can't get those cremation builds. Like, it's worse than the Bladefall Blade Blast. Alright. Don't know what I said that didn't come through, but Octavian's talking about Archmage Cremation. I don't like it because it's too cluttered.
Still an endurance charge gen. It is tanky as shit, and it sustains Trinity in a really interesting way. I didn't come up with the concept. Credit to Vapo, who's a viewer in my channel, who told me about the Trinity stuff. But effectively, what you can do is if you get Phantasmal Cremation, that causes corpse explosions whenever Cremation shoots a project or has a chance to cause corpse explosions. And those do a good chunk of fire damage, but Archmage does get added to those. So those are still primarily lightning hits, unless you also use Anomalous Archmage that cuts your Archmage into half cold, half lightning, roughly, which then means because you have half cold, half lightning, Archmage's damage doesn't overpower the fire damage from the corpse. So now you just cast Cremation and you have Trinity for free. You get access to the strongest elemental damage support gem in the game without having to do anything aside from use alt qualities that are already good. And in addition to that, you're doing 60% of your damage is cold damage now. So now you get to freeze. So the build can, freeze ultimatum rares, and it has capped dodge, and it has high evade, and it has good sustain. It's perfect for ultimatums. I love it.
Can I just
Time
interrupt
to
you?
play
Sorry.
Cremation Rise.
Rise, yeah. How many heists have you got saved up? Because you're gonna have to get heisting to get these gems.
I've known about this build for a long time. You guys think the Cremation Master hasn't known about this for months now?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. No, 2 viewers totally told me this shit like when Heist came out. But yeah. It is a really cool one. Well, not when
I just
Heist, but
learned
when
of it.
Trinity came out. Yeah.
I-
No,
I-
it is a really cool concept. And I think Scion is very cool in general right now. It's cool to see an ascendancy that got rebalanced in like a minor way that's kind of sneaking its way back into the hearts of the people, because Scion always was one of those ascendancies that was like either super overpowered or super underused, and now it almost seems like it's hitting a balance where you definitely require a larger investment than like a lot of other things, but the top end is high. Lower end doesn't feel as terrible as it did for the longest time, where Scion was just like this really grueling task to get through to eventually get to the good stuff. Now it feels like it starts working a lot earlier than what it did before, which is cool.
Especially if you level as the new Fizz skills, because you actually have good damage nodes in like Act 1, which is unheard of.
18% damage, increased damage. That's huge. True.
I was actually I was gonna say like they kind of buffed the area around the Scion start a few times in small ways. They also they buffed that 3-point cluster that gives LE damage and res. It just has more damage on it now. Made
Wait,
leveling
when did they
nicer.
buff that?
They buffed it like 2-3 leagues ago.
Yeah, that's a while ago, right? Oh.
Yeah.
It's cool too
didn't miss
because it's
anything.
got non-damaging ailment effect, so a lot of like
Yeah,
old builds pick it
good
up and
note.
whatnot. So
Yeah,
pretty
I'm
underrated.
I'm actually
probably going to
anointed that in
second
my
it.
current build. Which is good. Right. Noogie, you said that you had a build that you were excited to reroll into.
Yes. It is Archmage Cremation Trap.
Would
No, it's
Unleash.
not. With Unleash.
Okay. Yeah.
No, actually, I think. Okay, I've thought about it. Okay, actually, having thought about it a little bit, I think I might roll Lightning Strike Raider.
Okay. Lightning Strike
That's
sucks.
I
It
saw
can't go up and
someone
down
with, like,
ledges.
Claw
Fuck
might
yeah.
do that. So the thing is, right? I really like Trinity, and I like the. I was really conflicted last league whether or not I wanted to do Pathfinder or Raider with this build. I think to start with, it's better as a Raider because I did actually roll something very similar to this last league on a Pathfinder, and it actually had pretty good scaling. It seemed. I didn't take it far enough, but someone did it with 2 claws on SSF. I was like, okay, 2 claws, we can try that as well. So you get like that life on hit plus the full dodge. I think that's really cool. And Trinity is really cool. And then I got one of those Soul Ripper flasks.
Ooh.
So I can like insta pop an additional 2 lightning, like on demand, right? I come into the boss with 2 already stacked. I come in, pow, pow. And then they're like, pew, 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 pew. I don't even need to hit and I'm killing him. And then I can
Oh,
just
no.
Soul Ripper, and then I can just refresh, and I have another 2.
Unlucky.
Does
You actually can't have multiple instances of it.
All out at the same time?
I think so.
No! Well, okay, then I'm gonna go in.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go in.
Weird situations with these where you couldn't do it. Same with like Vol Double Strike where you couldn't have multiple, but now I'm pretty sure you can. So yeah.
Okay. Regardless, it's I think the build looks pretty cool. I think the Vol skill will definitely make it way more consistent on the boss. Right, regardless of anything, because it charges up way faster and it does do more damage. And since we have Trinity, you have like just Trinity in itself to be added to a Vol skill is such a huge damage increase. So that should be pretty big. Consider going low life and stuff as well with it. You know, you can add the flat, do stuff like that. Maybe Paradox. I thought about doing that.
Another, I'll watch that. That's really cool. I'm a big Lightning Strike fan, and I think people have been sleeping on it like since the KB meta. So
it's
nice.
I played it last league and it was almost like good, but I think just getting more attack speed and being faster will like do the thing, right?
Did you use it with chain?
No, I didn't have chain. I just had a
chain feels
I would
good.
like to get chain, but how would I get chain?
You get chain and then you do 0 damage, and that's kind of the Lightning Strike thing. For the longest time, it was like,
You mean like
oh,
using
you have
the
yeah, because for the longest time it was even more fucked because it was like, oh, you have to use multi-strike, ancestral call, and chain, and then they buffed up the boss, and it's like, well, my build that was like clearing maps in 30 seconds now is completely useless. So you kept like removing some of it, and now I think it's at a point where it might make sense, but I don't know.
I think
That's
with
why I'm
Raider
looking forward to it.
attack, right? And with the extra of all things you can just plop every now and then, I think we'll have a lot more just area coverage, but just attacking a lot faster.
I'm pretty sure you can do some cool stuff with Hydrosphere with it as well when it comes to the chaining part.
Possibly.
Or like ancestral call, you can position yourself and like do extra single target with that. But when I was trying it, it kind of worked, but it was kind of wonky too. So
I think with Raider, that's going to be a lot easier because you can reposition a lot faster. You have way better attack speed as well.
True.
So I think that might be a lot better.
I don't think you'll need the
Everybody's falling in love with Raider. It's too good.
flask. Octavian, you might have to back this up. So I've been doing Vol arc traps, and I've got like 100% uptime of the buff during ultimatums, just because of the amount of mobs you have. So for ultimatum, at least, you won't need any shenanigans. You will have that up 24/7.
Like I'm talking like actual like bossing here. If I wanted to like go in and yeet a boss every now and then.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know the lockout time on Vol Lightning Strike.
But like,
Ground Slam
how was
kind
your
of an
uptime on
exception.
Vol Ground Slime? Was that just like up 24/7?
I mean, yeah, it's the uptime on that is crazy, but the lockout time is literally a second. I don't know what it is for Vol Lightning Strike. It's probably higher.
As a 2-second downtime. I think maybe.
Oh, treats.
Yeah, in between. So it's like up. Well, it's up for 6 seconds. Then there's a 2-second downtime, and then you can start getting charges. So,
oh, okay.
So I'm thinking maybe if I get the other flask, the one that reduces the, then I can maybe overlap, right? Charge it up before it falls off. I don't know if that works. You know, the not the Soul Ripper, what's the other one called? Soul Catcher? With the flask?
I don't remember it. I
was
don't
getting
remember whether
confused
lockout
about that.
time begins at the end of the duration of the Vol skill, or
Yeah.
I think it would, since the changes. I think that was one of the changes they made a long time ago, back like before they even changed the flask.
Even if this build doesn't work, I fully support you doing more Raider stuff. I've been trying to push all my viewers to do Raider. Raider's
Raider's
been
very strong right
really
now.
good for a long time. It's always kind of had the issue of like the damage hasn't quite been there. But I feel like with the exposure nerfs and the trigger weapon nerfs especially, Raider is like in a really nice spot. Having that
Mhm.
multi 20 Ellie exposure, having access to Trinity, having like I've got 101% movement speed in towns with nothing active. I'm just like being fast in town is the best thing in any video game ever because I
Really
go
is.
to talk to like, oh, I need to go buy a level 1 gem. I see my character zoom. I'm in and out before some shitty little marauders even like made it past the waypoint. He's still just like, it's so good. It's so good.
I know the feel.
But yeah, no, I've been having a lot of fun with my Val Arc Trap Raider Rise. It's good. People.
I'm not
question.
criticizing.
People
I
question.
think
It's
I
okay.
think it looked pretty good. I looked at it.
It's
pretty good.
it's fine.
Did you kill yourself to reflect yet?
Oh, what on traps?
Yeah, with the vol, because you can't put it on a trap, right?
Yeah, you can.
So you just
Yeah, you can.
you can put vol arc on a trap. Now?
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Why can't you put it on a totem then?
Yeah, with Unleash.
It unleashes it.
Wait, why can't you put shit on the totem? That was my big problem with Vol Flame Blast. That doesn't make sense. What the
Chat's
hell?
saying you can put it on a totem.
I just
Really? They changed that too? That's
You know,
nuts.
this
then.
is the teaching Rise basic game mechanics. Rise, do you want to talk about
Basic.
your build?
Okay, listen, they changed that at least twice. I still remember to this day when arc trap meta was happening, people would like constantly kill themselves to reflect, and they'd be like, "But I'm a trapper," but they're just like arcing into the mobs. Pretty cool. Yeah, it's probably been like 4 years. Listen, I don't remember things.
So, what build are you even playing at the moment, Rise? Because every time I watch your stream, you're on something different.
Excuse you, bitch. I haven't been
Wow.
rerolling that much. I did a Death Souls guy in SSF. That was a cool little project. Farmed it up, got real bored real quick. Death Souls is really fucking good though.
Yeah.
Really good. I can wholeheartedly recommend it. Even for hardcore, I knew that it's gonna be nice, but it's real nice, especially since it works with the life tap stuff instead of Arcane Surge and whatnot. It's really nice. And then I rerolled the Flame Blast guy, which was really cool because Vol Flame Blast is like the sickest skill in the entire game, and you could get your ignite duration long enough so that it exceeds the duration of like your soul prevention. So you would just Vol Flame Blast in the middle of an ultimatum, and then the ultimatum would just always burn, and everything would die instantly. So you would never even see any mobs. But then I
Went surfing.
I went surfing. Yeah, I mean, I was fucking around with Divine Ire too, and I went surfing. I looked away, and I told
Just
boss I ran.
Oh, you
What
didn't
is
see
that?
the rip, Octavian? Oh, you're missing
I
out.
haven't watched rip clips in a while.
Listen,
I might do that
Please,
too.
relive your pain.
I'm a degenerate, so I look at bosses when they're melting from my dots, right? And basically, what happened, I was looking at the Atoll boss as he was melting, but I happened to also click away with my character as it was double boss, and it released a wave. At least one of those waves critted. We know that. And I perfectly ran exactly alongside the wave, getting hit like 17 or 18 times or something like that. We're going to make a bounty out of that for the gauntlet. Try and get hit by the wave 18 times because I tried my fucking hardest to replicate this in softcore after this situation, after I died. And I could not do it for the life of me. I tried so hard to do this. And yeah, I mean, I flashed it the first time, I did it completely blind. I wasn't even looking at my screen. I just ran with the wave. It was perfect. And yeah, my character fell over. It felt kind of bad because the build was super
That's a
sick.
great clip. I'm watching it now on repeat.
It's pain. I mean, at the same time, it's so funny. I don't know. It's probably the funniest rip I've ever had. But it's also like this was supposed to be my no bullshit character where I'm just like destroying everything, and I die like that.
Oh, okay. I just went and watched the clip. I see what you mean by wave.
Yes.
For some
It
reason
went
in my head, I
perfect, bro.
thought you died to the Nova, and I was like, how the fuck do you get hit by that multiple times?
It gets
Yeah.
funnier every time I watch it. It's so good.
Oh my
Actually,
gosh.
Funny enough, that Nova also bugs out. I don't know if it's a bug or what exactly is happening with it, but sometimes the boss can cast the Nova on the Frostbolts, which
Yeah.
I haven't found like a consistent way to see that, but I've seen it kill people, and it's kind of interesting where instead of one Nova, it does like four.
Careful,
I don't
Rise.
know
We
if it's
might
a
be spreading exploits. I don't know if we should be talking about this bug anymore.
yeah, maybe. It's when the boss has enough cast speed, mainly in the gauntlet. Yeah, that's probably it, is what Zai is saying. Because I've been trying to get that to happen and I couldn't make it happen. So yeah, maybe it's something like that. And now I'm playing a
Here it goes.
cast on crit staff inquisitor with volatile dead and desecrate. And by God, is it glorious with the green MTX? I can
I just
so much fun.
I wanted to pass something on to you, Rise. Somebody came into my chat and was like, I don't know how Rise is even doing damage. His gear doesn't look very good. He's such a god gamer. So there you go. Have that compliment.
Poggers. Yeah, dude. I've been surprised too because I thought it's one of those builds, especially with Inquisitor and Hardcore. You often find yourself, especially on SSF, with like, I have zero gear. I need to go crit. There's no way I can make this work, but I just feel like playing it. Last league, I tried doing that with Penance. I died 3 times, and then I finally made my God character with Harvest and stopped playing it because I don't know, the gauntlet happened or something. This time around, I thought that's going to be this character where I'm just going to be like constantly dying with it. I'm still alive and it's doing damage and my gear is still crap. So I'm really looking forward to the potential of it. I really like gearing Inquisitors a lot. They're super interesting. It's just too bad about timeless jewels. There's no Xana timeless jewels, so you can't really like get them. And Inquisitor, I feel, really needs it more than anything else. So yeah, that's been really painful. But I have like Omega CI gear. Anybody can recommend me a CI build that isn't ED Trickster, and yeah, that's it. Really, I'll
Cast
take
and crit
anything,
assassin.
please.
There you go.
What
I
is it?
mean,
Cast and crit assassin. Boom.
isn't the other obvious one
CI?
called God Occultist?
Yeah.
Like that's the other obvious one, right? Called that occultist. And it's
Yeah,
crazy
but it's
good for
called-
league mechanic. I
it's
mean, I'm
just
not saying you should
Mhm.
play it, but there is another obvious one.
I made a Wintertide brand elementalist.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about that.
sounds
It
fun.
has like it literally 90% of my passives are damage.
On
Because I'm trying to make Wintertide work. I don't know if it's
Oh,
gonna
God.
work, but I hope
I made Wintertide
on the
work.
topic, very tangentially of Cold Dot, putting Vortex on left mouse button on like every build that I've played so far this league is really nice for ultimatums, by the way, because you just drop them as you run and it chills all the rare monsters very consistently if you're running in circles. So if you have a spare socket and you don't need something on left mouse, do that.
I think I did that on my red DD.
Good tip.
Yep. And you just freeze everything every now and then. Because you're like full
Oh,
crit
true.
anyways. Yeah.
Oh fuck! I should do that.
You'd be surprised how many things you end up freezing.
Yeah.
I had cast and damage taking stuff as well, like cold snap, and it's like everything. Oh, okay. Guess it died.
Oh,
I
we
have like
doing utility tips. Void Sphere is very good in ultimatums as well, especially if you're playing one of the new Fizz skills because you get some scaling for it, and it applies Corrupting Fever, and you can put Curse on Hit on it, and it pulses away and sucks everything in the ultimatum, and then you just like group them all up. And if you have any sort of explosions or anything like that, it's going to be even better.
And then they can't run at you when you're trying to reap them.
It's true. Awesome still seat can reap. Perfect.
This is a good tip for the softcore players because everyone in hardcore is already doing it. Just add Enduring Cry to your build, and suddenly your build has sustain. I don't know why more people don't. I feel like it's one of those skills now. It just feels kind of mandatory.
yeah,
Enduring
click the
Cry.
button though.
Enduring Cry on my spacebar.
Disgusting.
So good.
Sockets are hard right now. It's hard to fit all the things in you want. Because
I mean-
usually I'm all for like running Enduring Cry on your build. I'd love to slap a War Cry in there, but kind of justify the socket.
If we're talking about cool defensive layers, let me just ruin a market for myself in hardcore trade for no reason. So there's this new mod on Abyss Jewels that's got a weighting of 100, so it's really hard to hit, but it's amazing. It gives you 20% chance to avoid being stunned. That's the mod. If you get enough Abyss Jewels, you can get stun immunity on any build.
It's that rare. I was trying
It's
to do that
very
on my deck,
rare.
so
It's
that's
very
why I
rare.
wasn't getting it. I didn't look it up. I
Mhm.
was like, surely I can get it. Lol.
I looked
Turns out not so much.
I looked for it on Hardcore Trade, and there were 8 of them.